Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Xa Talk Show. We have 10 people. Welcome all. Today is 2020, December 18th, Friday, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, San Francisco time. Today we are going to do Emacs Lisp, nothing but Emacs Lisp, and maybe other programming related topics, or maybe keyboard, a little, maybe. If you have comments, questions, post it. Okay, I love to see your comments, any of your thoughts. Why do you have Marisa on preview? Okay, that is an interesting question. Let me show you. Okay, Marisa from the anime fan, from the anime club. So this is my Emacs blog. So you can see, scroll down, this anime character. Okay, this Japanese anime character, Marisa. And she turns out to be a video game. She's from a video game, kind of a shooter video game. And our family, Emily, is very fond of. I found this icon on 4chan actually. So I just, I just posted. It seems interesting, although this is not my thing. But this one is okay. So her Chinese name is 买语物语魔丽莎 okay, something like that. 物语魔丽莎 or I don't remember exactly what's the first character. 物 or 买 so that means foggy and rain. 魔丽莎 means magic and something. Okay, so that's her name. It's a Japanese character. And if I did look into the, you can just search the name and you will find the game and lots of information. Who created the game, the company. It seems to be either a Japanese guy or Chinese guy in Shanghai. And this game is extremely popular. But this is beyond, this is during the time, I think beginning in 2000, something like that. I'm not familiar with. So today we're gonna talk about Emacs Lisp, Emacs and Emacs Lisp coding and related stuff. So comments, okay, 10 people watching, comments. Okay, let's see, let's check if my video is going. Check, video check, audio check. Okay, so what are we going to do? I'm thinking either just talk about some of the interesting stuff. So I can talk about some interesting stuff about Emacs documentation. Emacs documentation, they need to change to the HTML format. Emacs documentation is using the let me show you. Okay, if I started to talk about that, then it's going to be non-stop. So I have it somewhere here. So there is a lot changes. I've been coding Emacs Lisp for the past 2 days. Haven't been doing that for a while, and that's fantastic, Emacs Lisp. Okay, let me just begin talking about random, okay, Emacs related things. So first of all, so here this page, Emacs Lisp function frequency. So here is the frequency of the functions used in Emacs Lisp. So for example, you can see setq is the most used of all Emacs Lisp functions. Setq is the most used, and if is the second most used. Obviously, it's understandable. Define is the third most used. Define, of course, you need to define a function. And let is the fourth most used. Let is used for creating local variables. So obviously. And is also frequently used, of course. That's a logic operator. And condition, usually used with if. If something condition are met, you do something. So that is and. Or, and then you have car. Car is a Lisp thing. Basically, it means the first element of a list. And the name is got a long history. Car, kata. That's one of the Lisp idiocy. It's one of the idiosyncratic thing in Lisp language. And whenever there is an idiosyncratic thing of a language that is unique to the language, then that thing becomes the legend, the myth, it becomes the identity. So whenever you hear people talk about Lisp, you'll hear car, kader, you'll hear that, and also Lisp macros, and also symbols, car, kader, Lisp macros. That's a thing you hear in parentheses, of course, because those things are unique, kind of unique to the language, and they become the representation. They become the identity thing. So car is one of such thing in Lisp language. In Emacs, you also have that. For example, scratch buffer, meta. Every time you hear Emacs people talk, they will talk of meta, scratch buffer, how it is supremely useful, and all that crap. It's a complete garbage. Okay. The reason, like I said, the reason they become popular, the reason every time people talk about Emacs, they will mention meta, they will mention scratch buffer, they will have like a unnecessary. It is like these topics will come up and up again and again for 10, 20, 30 years, almost unnecessarily and trivially. Like nobody needs to know something about that, but people will start to mention it. Why? Because it is precisely because these items, they are idiosyncratic to this tool or programming language. For example, in Emacs, meta, scratch buffer. What are the other things? Super hyper key as well. So and Emacs, mostly these things. And also Emacs undo. Emacs undo is very unusual. It's almost unique. So people will constantly mention it. As I said, the reason is that because they are idiosyncratic to the application, to the tool, and they become identity, and it becomes a code issue. It became a code icon. So people will constantly mention it, and unnecessarily, almost like idiotically. And every time you mention maybe you should change that, people will become a flame war. That is why, because so for example, I mentioned, so for Emacs it's meta, scratch buffer, meta key, super hyper key, scratch buffer. Okay, that's Emacs. For Lisp, the language in general, you have of course the parentheses, then you have car and kader, and con cells, then you have the Lisp macro. Okay, Lisp macro is also has been unique in programming languages for 30 years, 40 years. So that's Lisp. And Python too. Python is also a COTI language among the open source. So for Python, the indentation, okay, the indentation, that's a big thing. Every time when Python is talked about, the indentation issue will come up almost always, because that's kind of the idiosyncratic to Python, and it gradually and becomes a identity issue. So Python is indentation, then and so on, and also other things, other languages. I'm not going to talk about. So comments. Okay, good evening, good to know. V96K, good to know. Thanks for the answer. What answer? Xa became a weeb. Weeble. Okay, weeable. Now, weeb is a corruption, linguistically speaking. The word weeb, W-E-E-B, is a corruption of the word weeable, of the slang weeable, W-E-A-B-O. How do I know? Because I looked up. And weeable means it has an interesting history, etymology, how it became so weeable. It means basically someone, usually Americans, okay, American or white people, who are obsessive about Japanese things, anime and stuff. Interesting etymology, linguistic aspects. Those are slangs, and slangs, also languages, slangs, they reflect the culture, they reflect the community. So when you use Jihani, when you say Xa became a weeb, other people can tell you know what it means, and other people can also tell probably your age group. You're probably under 30, let's say, or under 20, not above 50 for sure. So language, the diction, the choice of words you use, they reflect you and your personality, and also the community, and also it reflects in, at large, they reflects humanity, the whatever American country, as a country, or a Chinese or Russian or Japanese, the language, even or French, they reflect your culture in lots of ways. So what I'm going into, I don't remember. So anyway, so Ernest says maybe another aspect that it come up a lot is that new people are wondering what the idiosyncratic thing is. Yes, it's almost like a vicious circle. For example, Emacs meta. Emacs. When you talk about Emacs, you have meta and scratch buffer. So people will constantly mention it, and if people mention it, then newcomers, they will see, oh, what is that? They don't know, of course. So they will look, they will start to learn about it. Then they will start to mention it. Oh, answer about Marisa. Oh, yeah, okay. So Marcin says, Wozniak. I think I know you from somewhere. Are you the Marcin I know? I think your name sounds familiar. Are you the keyboard guy? Hi, I would like to ask about LaTeX. Do you use any compiler in Emacs? Thank you for being here. Started to using Emacs about your channel. Well, LaTeX, I don't use it anymore. I used it in 1990s, and I used it for a year, on and off in 2000s. I haven't been using LaTeX for the past 10 years. Do you use any compiler in Emacs? What do you mean by compiler? What do you mean, like Java compiler, JavaScript compiler, C language compiler, or what? Or you mean compile Emacs? What do you mean? Do you use any compiler in Emacs? Okay, answer that. Okay, so we have 20 people watching. Okay, so back to the topic, Emacs Lisp function frequency. So this is interesting because I wrote a program, so you can see there I list the top 500 most used functions in Emacs Lisp, the language. And the way it's done is I wrote this Python script. I did this in 2006. You can see in 2006. So you can see the old version here in 2006. Okay, 2006, that's Emacs 23. So here's a list of the most frequently used Emacs functions in Emacs 23. But now yesterday I rewrote the Python program. It's amazing, Python. So I wrote this in 2006 Python 2, and it worked. It still works, but I upgraded. I modified it to be Python 3. So you can run this script yourself to do the same, to get this, to tally this function call count. So the way it's done is just, you just read a text file, Emacs source code, then you split, you read the whole thing as a string, then you split by the left parenthesis, okay, you split it into an array. So for each array, you find the first word. That's how this is done. Now perhaps, technically there may be better ways. Actually, this is very practical, and also by doing this you can find some weird things. For example, you find 4. So you see, you find there 4. You see, not item 453. So let's go to Emacs. Let's show you. Okay. So apparently you find. So apparently in some Emacs Lisp source code, you have this line. Now 4 is not a Emacs Lisp function. Maybe they, let's see, describe function. So there is no function named 4. nor is there a variable named for describe variable, so it's not. So that means apparently maybe they wrote a macro or something. But anyway, that's a side effect of interesting things you find in these when you do this. Okay, that's one of the thing. Okay, so this is this Emacs Lisp function frequency. And by the way, if you don't know already, I also have a I also have a Emacs command frequency statistics. So in Emacs, every keystroke is a command call. Essentially, every keystroke is corresponding to a Emacs Lisp command name. So that means you can get a statistics of the most used frequently used commands. So the reason I do this is so that when you want to design a efficient keyboard layout for Emacs, you need to know which command are used the most. For example, each one has a command name. So this down arrow, actually I use a shortcut. So down arrow means here's a table. So down arrow means the command next line, or the command diet next line, or the command next history element. They are all down arrow key. So and the return key we'll call the command new line, or org return, or org return indent, or some other, depending on which major mod you are in. So you have to kind of do some kind of translation a little bit in order to create this table in a sensible way, because my goal is to find out which command are used the most often. For example, anyway, so I'm not going to go into details, but anyway, you can see. So here is the Emacs command ordered by their frequency of use. Anyway, you can look at this page in detail. So let's go back. Let's just talk about something interesting, random. Okay. So I'm thinking I'm going to do some Lisp coding. Okay, so Marcin's question is for export from LaTeX to PDF. Oh, that's pretty easy. I mean, is that a problem you need to solve, or is that you're asking what's the best way, something like that? I use Emacs for writing org files, bash script, and programming in Ruby. Okay. So anyway, I haven't used LaTeX, but basically I know these days today, what you do is basically you just write them in org mod. I don't use org mod that much. I don't use it basically. So yeah, but you can if you use org mod, just use org mod, and you can have LaTeX expressions in org mod, and when you export, they will become rendered. That's what most people do today. Fewer people, back in the 90s or 2000s. Well, of course, before 2008 also, org mod was not there yet. There's no org mod. But anyway, today most people just, if you need some LaTeX or math formulas, you do it inside org mod. But you can still do it in pure LaTeX. You can there are quite a few LaTeX mods for LaTeX, just for LaTeX. But I believe fewer and fewer people do that, because it's kind of you can just use it in org mod much easier. Okay, Ernest says another good thing to do would be to see most common commands after some commands. Yeah, you mean command combination? Well, why do you want to do that? I do not use org mod, so what do I use? I talked about this many times. In fact, it's a frequently asked question, because all the org fans, they see me writing raw HTML, and they are wondering, why don't you use org mod? What kind of static website system do you use? I talked about this many times. I code in plain Xao Talk Show. Okay, let's go to Xao Talk Show's page. So let's magnify and show in browser or single key press. So this is today's talk show, and let's turn on JavaScript. Okay, so you can see that is today's talk show. Search for YouTube. So that YouTube video is this text block. Okay, so I'm showing you some of my workflow in Emacs. So I just press a key to comment it out, show in browser, one key press, and it's good. So one key press back to Emacs, you see always one single key press. Okay, again I need to show you my my keyboard setup. Okay, so this is Kinesis Advantage 2, fantastic, I recommend it. And this is Ultimate Hacking Keyboard. By the way, version 2 just came out and I wrote a blog about it. So but I use my Ultimate Hacking Keyboard for all keyboard macros, so I show this many times. So this is the last window, and this is previous page, previous tab, next tab. And this page is optical key switch keyboard. They are pretty cheap. So if you want a cheap mechanical keyboard, I can recommend that. Okay, so but anyway, so I want to Xao Talk Show. So you can see okay, so go back to here, hide this. So you can see I'm so show the pink window. The pink window is all my Emacs commands. Okay, close this, all single key press. You can see that I code everything in raw HTML. Why? Because I grew up with HTML. I learned HTML since 1995. HTML version that is version 2, around version 2 or so. And CSS was not even born yet. CSS began around 1997 or 1998. And when it began, CSS, nobody is using it. People are using, people are embedding. Let me show you. Okay, so for example, let me show you. Okay, so for example, let's put the cursor on the, let's magnify. Okay, magnify, show the pink window, and I want to add a span. Okay, span and class, let's say bold. Let's say class whatever. Okay, okay, so you see it automatically added that. Okay, and show in browser, there's no change because whoops, and so instead of a class, I just say style, font size, let's say 3EREM. Okay, show in browser, you can see the raw is big, and if you want color, you just say color red. Okay, show in browser. So that's what I do. That's everything in raw HTML, because I know HTML and CSS so well. In fact, and with Modifier Keys and XHTML mod, which is what I'm using, you can see in the mod line. So for example, I do hold on a second, show the pink window. Describe variable. Okay, wait. Describe variable major mod. Now major mod is a built-in variable in Emacs. Now whenever, so you can see describe variable, and it will tell you what mod you are using. So you can see I'm using XHTML mod. Because why? Because well, since I've been using Emacs for 20 years and coding Emacs Lisp for 15 years, so I wrote almost lots of things by myself. And in fact, that's just convenient and natural for me, just because I used it for so many years. If you use Emacs for, or coding Emacs Lisp for 10 years, you'll do that too. It's actually easier to write your own than using someone else's package and learning about it. Yeah. So here's my HTML mod, a total of almost 5,000 lines, and so I claim, because I built everything myself in Emacs, so it's actually, if you count keystrokes to create the same documentation using HTML in XHTML versus in org mod, I claim, okay, with Modifier Keys, that you are actually, the keystroke needed will be actually less than org-mod. Okay, so to me, using raw HTML is actually more efficient than org-mod, and I don't have to export nothing, and I have full control. I have full control of it. For example, here is my CSS file. All this CSS file, it's not template. Okay, it's not template or framework. Fuck. It's all this is all coded manually. Okay, created manually over the years. So my CSS is 200 lines. They are very extremely efficient. Okay, these CSS, because I know every word, every style I create. There's no fat, lean. Okay. So anyway, that is why I do not use org-mod. Well, I try to use mod since 10 years ago. It just I prefer HTML. Just because I know it so much. Okay, that's about that. So let me talk about other things. Okay. So perhaps there exists an auto key assigner based on such statistics, but algorithm would not be too trivial. No, well, so you are saying, to create a most efficient layout for Emacs. First of all, let me mention, a lot of people. Okay, today's topic is beginning to become not Emacs, because I was thinking to talk about Emacs Lisp coding, because I wanted to code some Emacs Lisp. Emacs Lisp, there's a lot. Hash table, find, replace, yeah, a lot. But anyway, okay, key binding. Okay, let me tell you about key bindings. Okay, so keyboard layout. So I talked about this many times. So there are many keyboard layouts, right? So there is a QWERTY layout. There is the Dvorak layout. This is a heat map, by the way. The bigger the circle means that letter is the most frequently used. So if you go to QWERTY, you can see they are scattered all over. But Dvorak, most of them frequently used letters are on the home row. And same thing with Cormac DH, Workman. They have different philosophies. Each person created a different layout. Norman, Asset, Capwell, QFMLWY, and Minimac. Minimac is anyway. So these are letter layouts. People, most programmers are, a lot of them are obsessive about it. But what they did not know, you'll rarely find any study, is the shortcut layout. Okay. Now let me show you some shortcut layout. So you go to my keyboard page. So all these articles are about layout. Okay, those are letter layout. Okay, keyboard layout design. All these articles are about letter layout. For example, which one is the most efficient? Which one? Motron versus Dvorak. Motron has a special keyboard. You have the letter E on the thumb key. Very interesting. So I comment on that. You have Cormac versus Workman. Cormac versus Workman. Why is Workman invented? So all these are related to keyboard layout, and they are letter layout. Remember that. This is important. Now we go to this section. All these are about key binding. Now what's key binding? Key binding is, when you are in Emacs, you have meta X, control something, alt something, or cut, copy, paste, control X, control C, control V, undo. And if you use Photoshop or video editing, you have hundreds, usually 100 keyboard shortcuts. Keyboard shortcuts are in fact essential, because almost in any application, for example, switch tab is depending on what, usually it's control tab and control shift tab, but on the Mac it's something else. And 10 years ago, 20 years ago, each browser have actually different keys. So anyway, so you see these are shortcuts. Shortcuts are critical. Almost in any application you need to use it. Okay, let's go back to shortcuts are critical. In fact, when I studied the thing I showed, the Emacs statistics, it turns out if you are a programmer, okay, let's say you are a programmer, you log your keystrokes. It turns out, on average, if you average out all the programmers, at least, okay, or more than 50% of keystrokes is actually shortcut keys. You see, if you log your key count, and if you do that for, let's say, 10,000 programmers, it turns out most of the keystroke are part of the keyboard shortcuts, not typing. Okay, you see that this is one of the critical things I found when I studied when I did the Emacs statistics. It depends on the person though, but on average. So what I'm saying is that you actually your fingers type keyboard shortcuts more often than when you actually just insert letters. So that means the keyboard layout, the keyboard shortcut layout, is actually more important than the keyboard letter layout. So this is an interesting finding. So this is another reason I fucking despise the hackers, because when you look at the keyboard community, there are thousands of people obsessive about this letter layout. They created so many varieties, and even to this day people are still debating, trying to find statistic which one is better, but home row versus a different kind of scoring system, common finger row of the Walkman and so on. But you never see, actually there's something else more important, that's the shortcut layout. But you're not find one fucking fuckheads, these hacker types. You'll not find them talking about that. I did, okay. I did, like, it's like 15 years ago now. So I swearing and hate is my personality. Okay, hate defines me. That's how I am, due to reasons. So you see me swear a lot, but in general, okay, the problem is not. So the problem I'm in general criticizing is just the masses. The masses in general, they don't think, they are not. That's a masses, including programmers. In each field you have the mass of people. They just follow. They are not thinkers. They don't think. They just follow whatever other people are saying, and it becomes hip. They follow trend and fashion. You go to Hacker News or you follow Emacs community, everyone will say, oh, you should change control to caps lock, or you should Voragea or whatever. These people, they are not, they become elite. They tell you what to do, but actually they are not. They are not thinkers. They never do anything. They never actually think about things. But however, many of them, they form a code, such as the Python code, the Lisp code, the Emacs code, and among this code you have elite leaders. They tell you what to do, and half of the time it's just incorrect. For example, in Python code, they'll tell you about idioms. They tell you how you should code your lots of idiom, pep, stuff. Anyway, I talked about Python in one of my video. So anyway, wow, that's a bit too much of a rant, I guess. Okay, so anyway, back to the important point. So the point is that shortcut keys are actually more frequently used, therefore more important if you are concerned about your keyboarding issues, your RSI or whatever. So in this section, I talk about all keyboarding. For example, here's another thing: hacker idiots. Okay, here's another thing about hacker idiots. How many keyboard shortcuts are there? The hacker types. Emacs, all programmers, every one of them. They, you'll see them talk about, they want to, map hyper, meta keys. For example, let me show you some interesting Lisp keyboards. Lisp keyboards, you can see I talked about this many times. Okay, so cell keyboard is the granddaddy, the root of all Lisp keyboard. This is the cell keyboard, Stanford AI lab in 1970. This lab is created by John McCarthy, the guy who created Lisp, the language. And on this keyboard, cell keyboard, you see it's the first keyboard with the meta key. And it is also this keyboard. Today you have, on the Mac you have command key, on the Windows you have window key. They are all derivative of this meta key. Okay, so it is this cell keyboard that created, the first one that created the concept of a meta key other than Control and Shift. Control and Shift was there before. So anyway, this is this keyboard. So what my point is, I want to mention the okay, let me mention, I talked about this many times, Space Cadet keyboard. You see on Hacker News, on keyboard groups, or in Emacs community, you'll see lots of fandom of these. They'll get excited about, meta Control Alt. They mention that all the time. So remember, I said before, keyboard shortcut is more important. So now you have this keyboard, so Control Meta Alt, Control Meta Alt, Hyper and Top, Greek, so many modifier keys. So wouldn't you think that's fantastic, right? That's more modifier keys for shortcut. So that's good, right? No, actually that's bad. This is bad. Okay, you don't want modifier keys. So without modifier keys, how do you do shortcuts? So back to the key binding article. So this article I talk about modifier keys versus key sequence. So what does key sequence means? For example, let's say copy. Okay, Control C for copy, right? Now on Windows, by the way, you can also do copy by Alt space C, I believe, or was it Alt EC, F10 EC? Okay, I forgot which one exactly. I'm not on Windows. Well, my Windows machine is outside. But anyway, on Windows you can press Alt, release it, and then press space, then press W to C to close the window. Okay, instead of the Alt F4. So anyway, that's an example of key sequence. And on this page, I talk about how many possible shortcuts are there if you use modifier keys or if you use key sequences. It turns out key sequences, you have far more modifier keys than the same number of keys for if they are modifier keys, far more. Okay, so that means when it comes to Lisp keyboard, all the nerds will say, they will get excited. Oh my God, on this keyboard you have 8 modifier keys. So that means you can have like 10,000 or 100,000 combinations. They all say that. You go to Wikipedia, you can read a sentence about that. Almost anywhere they talk about this. They get excited about this Space Cadet keyboard. You'll see that. But that idea, that concept is actually idiotic. You don't want that. You don't want, so yeah, okay, so you can have all these combinations, but all these combinations, in fact, you can do the exact same combinations without requiring all these modifier keys. You just need 2 or 3 keys that is used as a leader key of a key sequence, not as a modifier. Okay, so that's my point. That's one of my point about, that's what this page is about. You actually start to calculate how many possibilities using key sequence compared to keyboard shortcut. Okay, so what's the point here? So the point here, and also you can compare which one is easier to press. Suppose you need to press Control Alt Meta C. Okay, Suppose that versus, let's say, function 7, function 8, function 9. Both of them are just, one of them is 4 keys. Control Alt Meta C. 4 keys. You have to hold 3 of them together, then press the other one, then release the other one, then release the other 3. Okay, that's kind of complicated. Control Meta Alt, then C, then release and release this, then you got that. Okay, so that versus, let's say, a sequence key. Let's say F7 AB. Okay, F7 AB. So which one is easier? You tell me. Okay, one is 3 keys, one is 4 keys, and the 4 keys part you have to involves complicated order and syncing. So these idiots, these hacker idiots, they never saw this. They never even thought about it. So I found this. So what is the practical application? Well, now you know that. So you can start to rebind your Emacs keys, to find out which one, to get a better system or better way, so that you can do things faster, more efficient, and less finger sprain, less repetitive strain injury. Okay, that's just one of the article. There's quite a lot. So why am I mentioning this? Okay, so I'm mentioning this because we were talking about I forgot what's the question. Yeah, I was mentioning it because well, someone mentioned about an algorithm to automatically create the most efficient keyboard layout. Okay, that idea is a great idea, but it's not so easy. Okay, there are many issues. For example, the issues I just talked about. So if you are going to do that, if it's certainly possible to write a program that, first of all, based on the most frequently used Emacs commands, then you want to map them to the most frequently used keyboard shortcuts. But it's not trivial to do, because first of all, what kind of shortcut are you going to use? Are you going to use modifier keys or key sequence? You see, normally you may not even thought about key sequences. That's a problem. You see, that's a problem with the most programmers, hackers. They don't think. But now there's a key sequences. So maybe you can think about, maybe the program should map them to key sequences as opposed to key code. By the way, there are more issues about key sequence and key code. Now, one problem with key sequence is that you cannot use them to repeat. For example, with key code, suppose you want to do something, move cursor. Okay, let's see. So you see, I can move cursor. You see, right now I'm moving cursor by paragraph. You see, one paragraph down, one paragraph down. I can hold it and move it all the way down. You can see my command on the right, on the pink window. Okay, so that command is CSAR end of line or block. I'm using CSAR flag key. So you see, I can hold down one key and it keeps moving. Or similarly, I can move by word, right? Now, this you can do with the key code, but if you use a key sequence, you cannot do that, because you cannot just hold it down. Because every time you have to press the key sequence. I also talked about that in here. Okay, one of the article, ban key codes. Okay, so these are the issues you have to dive into. So anyway, that's a segue of that. That's so back to your point about writing a program to automatically create the most easy shortcut, map the most easy commands to shortcut. That's not trivial, because besides all these issues I just mentioned, key code or key sequence, you also have to come up with a scoring system to determine which key code is easier. For example, let me just ask you, is Control C better than Alt C? Which one is better? Should your program automatically, which one is better, Control C or Alt C, or Shift C? If I ask you that, it's not a simple question, because first of all, it depends on what keyboard you use. I'm using this Batman keyboard. It's fancy, so there's one answer for that. But for a traditional keyboard or for a laptop keyboard, the answer is going to be different. So you have to make a decision. Then maybe you think, okay, so you have to base on the keyboard that most people are using, right? But if you do that, then whatever outcome of your algorithm will not be good for people who are not using a traditional keyboard. For example, any person who uses an ergonomic keyboard, then your system will not be suitable because your system will actually create inefficient layout for them. So it's not a trivial problem, okay? Okay, so that's okay. Also, if you want to do that, it also has to be app dependent, because for Emacs, for Photoshop, for Inkscape, for any application, they have different shortcuts, different commands. So anyway, that's about that. Oh, so I've watched your talk about this before. It's the thing that inspired my comments. Okay, thank you. Yeah, excuse me, I rant a lot. So I'm gonna read the comments. Okay, let's see what comments. I want to, maybe we should get back to Emacs or Emacs Lisp coding. I want to, let's see what's my Emacs blog. There's quite interesting things about. Okay, if you like my stuff, PayPal me, okay? PayPal and Patreon, and super chat me, ching ching. I watch other people's video. I'm this poor sub, and I watch other people's video. When they do a talk show, it's like the chat non-stop fly through, and every few seconds, ching, $5, ching, $20, and I look at them, they say, oh, if you want, pay $5 or pay something, if you want me to answer your question, I'm going to read your question. So I should do that too. So if you want me to answer your question, pay. You have to pay. Okay, that in general, that is not my thing. That's not, that's a normal. That's actually a normal way to do things. That's most people do. But I'm not that kind of people. I'm not, I just do whatever I want to do. I'm not focused on making money. Okay, sorry I can't join you guys today. Hey, good morning, Scott. You have to go, I guess. I have another conference call. Okay. So lots of okay, let me finish the reading the reading the comments. Hi everyone, this one probably a bit out of topic. What's your thought on the Wolfram physics project? Oh, Wolfram physics project, that's very interesting. By the way, I've been wanting to read that, but I haven't had time to. Yeah, so Wolfram turns out he is in computer science, okay, among computer scientists, he is the guy I respect the most of all computer scientists. For example, Donald Knuth. I don't like Donald Knuth, his stuff much at all. I don't like LaTeX he created. I despise literate programming. I think it's a useless, idiotic fuck literate programming. I don't like LaTeX. I think LaTeX is the worst harmful fuck. There's a just search for why LaTeX sucks on search for. I have an article on that. And his art of computer programming. Well, I guess that's a fine book, but it's not my style. And he uses assembly language. So and anyway, Stefan Wolfram, he's a guy and I respect the most. And also I find that the style of thinking, the thinking about things, the way people think, I find him I share with him the most about how we think about things. Stephen Wolfram. So he recently wrote, each one of his blog is tremendous. It's so much material. Just go to Stephen Wolfram blog, and so recently, about a few weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, he wrote 3 articles about combinators, and those articles are extremely fascinating. And also, another aspect I would like to say I share with Stephen Wolfram is that when he write in the most clear, no jargon nonsense way possible. So when you read his, and each one of his stuff, his article is very long. Okay, take you 1 hour even just to skim it. But no jargons. You can understand everything in detail. Okay, but why is it long? Is because there are so many. It's very dense. There are so many things he talk about. But there's an interesting phenomenon that his articles, although it's tremendous, it's fantastic, it's well written, and the illustration, it's like impossible. Today on the web you have JavaScript, Java D3 JavaScript library, all the fancy graphics, or Scheme, Scheme Lisp fans, they have fancy libraries, or the processing language for doing graphics. All those in comparison, all those are shit. Stephen Wolfram with mathematical language, you can in 1 day you can create graphics that takes the other D3 10 years to write. It's amazing, and each one of his blog has so many tens of those graphics. So this is about visualization. Visualization is another kind of topic. Is somewhat becomes a code, but anyway, Stephen Wolfram. Okay, so he wrote 3 articles about combinators, and that's one of the great topic in theoretical computer science. So I highly recommend you go read that. Okay, now he recently, about a few months ago, he started a physics project. I wanted to read it, but I don't have time. Also, I'm getting old, so I don't know much. I don't know that much. I don't know much about physics. So for whatever time I have, I want to concentrate on mathematics, and prove theory. So anyway, So I haven't read it. He's talking about. I believe he's talking about some model for physical cosmology, that is the fundamental structure of the universe. Okay, and he's got his ideas. Stephen Wolfram, he's very bombastic. He's very arrogant guy. So a lot of mathematicians, the greatest mathematicians or computer scientists, they don't like him because of that. But I don't think it's a big deal. Okay, I think, in fact, I despise many of these mathematicians. I have articles about that. About arrogance as a personality trait. There's quite some interesting thing to say about that, because that's an issue we talked a lot about too. Because, for example, in programming community, many people flamed Linus Torvald, the guy who created Linux. He is also he's not arrogant necessarily, but he's abusive in his language. That's not the way to put it. He's just he just swear a lot, like me. Fuck these idiots. You are idiots. You don't know nothing. I noticed YouTube started to censor. They started to be more tight. Before you click on the $sign, they require they have now a giant list. One of the lists says in detail that your video does not swear much. The fucking, it's all a lie, because YouTube, the rap, the social justice people, the left, politicians in USA, they love the black rap. For example, the Jack Fuckheads, the Twitter CEO. Alan, okay, Alan, listen. The Jack CEO, they all these people, they love the black rap. But when you actually watch the rap songs of the black people, it's fucking swearing and the most abusive language. Not just swearing, abusive to women, and violence, gun violence, fucking in every sentence, the black rap songs. Okay. But meanwhile, all these social justice people saying you cannot swear, but they love the black people rap songs. It's a hypocritic to such an extreme degree. On YouTube, for example, all the rap songs with all the swearing, they all make money. They are not censored. They all make tons of money. But for average people, you cannot swear or you cannot say some. It's amazing. So that's the collapse of America, collapse of white nations. Oops. Today is supposed to be a technical talk only, not politics. Shit, I really violated that. Okay, so okay, I guess we just talk where we go. And how long have I been talking? So let's see. 57 minutes. Oh my god, we should close now. We should close down now. I have a question. Math. I thought about today that the same symbol is used for negative number and minus. This may just be Swedish idiocy, but it seems very unintuitive. Is there a logic to it? Lucas asked that question. I have a question about math. I thought about today that the same sign is used for negative number and minus. Yeah, so that's a topic about math notations. Okay, there is a book you can go buy. That is the history of math notations. Now, on the topic of math notations, that's deep. That's as deep as you want to go, because when you talk about math notations, depending on how you dive into it, it certainly can be related to the foundation of mathematics, the foundation of logic. Okay, because why? Because logic, okay, or proof systems, proof theory. Today we use computer to do that because humans cannot do. Formalism, logicism. That's a philosophy of math. I'm not, I talked about that before. I'm not going to go into detail. But anyway, in philosophy of math, you have formalism, you have logicism. They are philosophy about math foundations, and math foundations, as it progressed over the past 100 years, more and more, we first of all, before computers, mathematicians begin to use symbols instead of English words. So you want to use symbols to represent things, equations or formulas or whatever. Why? Because words is too loose. Symbols, logic symbols. For example, you have and or not. Lots of symbols. To use symbols instead of words. But now with computers, it's a one level upgrade. So you use symbols, but then you use computers to use those symbols. So it's like programming, right? When you write programming, it's all code. But for math, if you are doing proofs, automated proof systems, it's all symbols. So what are symbols? Symbols are notations. They are. So what's the relation between symbols and notation? Well, symbol is part of notation. So there's a huge amount of things to dive into when you talk about math notation. For example, your question. Your question is specifically about the minus sign. You are saying it's kind of it's used to negate a sign of a number, and it is also used to for minus operator. So it's a it's an operator, or it's also it's an operator with a single there are different ways to look at it. So it kind of it can go deep into what do you mean by a number. So any number you can think of it as a group inverse of any negative number. You can think of it from an abstract algebra point of view. You can think of it as to represent a element that is the inverse of the positive of another element. Okay, group theory inverse. So in that sense, the negative sign is not even an operand. It's a negative sign plus the number that the whole thing represents one single thing, a single element in group theory. So that's one aspect to it. That's kind of one way to look at it. Then, so anyway, so there are lots of details to look into. Okay, so maybe I think that's it. That's about it today. Any more questions? So Lucas says, what is good starter key for making sequence then? Alt space. Yeah, you can do that. Or you can pick a function key, F7. Again, it depends on your keyboard. And again, it also depends on how, your habit, like how frequent, And if you have a modal mod, then you can just use space. You don't even need Alt. But the disadvantage of a modal mod is that you have to switch to command mod first. So there are pros and cons. So that's a big question to look into. So I wrote a lot about these issues. So you just you want to go to my keyboard blog and read. You can read the whole thing about key binding, shortcut systems. And by the way, shortcut systems is also very much related to input systems. So what do you mean by math input systems? For example, you have so-called dead key, or or on the Mac you can press the Option key and some other key to create a Unicode symbol, right? So inputting math symbols, or if you are if you need to type Japanese or Chinese or Korean or and then you need a even entire input system. So all these are related. So there's a lot to say about that. You might check out my blog. Why there are no good Emacs clones? So question, when Modifier Keys will be available on VS Code? If you pay me, it will be available. Okay, I would ask I asked for $300. $300. Okay. Start your donation. $300. Or or if you work in a corporate company, no need to be sad. Okay. If you work in a company, you make a lot of money. You Silicon. Some of you guys work at Google or Facebook. $300 is peanuts to you. You work for 5 hours a day. You got three. You pay me. I'll create Modifier Keys, the official one, for VS Code. I've noticed there are people doing that. That's the nature of open source. They look at, and a lot of people in Emacs, they look at software keys, and for one reason or not, they don't want to use mine. They want to create their own. Part of the reason is that part of the reason people do that, especially Emacs people, and you guys too, because we want to, we always have the, we kind of want to create our own, so a lot of people just look at my key binding choices and they use other framework, they create their own. And also I've noticed someone has ported to that editor, that editor from, what's the name, famous for creating the Java IntelliType. No, not IntelliTypes. There's a Java, there's a company that created a bunch of editors for PHP, for Python, for Ruby. IntelliJ, I think it's IntelliJ for their Java editor. But anyways, people has ported software keys to that platform, and I think there's also one for VS Code. If you search, you'll find it. How do I feel about it? No, I'm not too happy. I mean, nothing. That's just the nature of open source. Because if I have money, I happen to be not, someone in poverty. Okay, I'm doing much better now, but I don't have money to eat. Okay, in a very dire situation, and I code. Yeah, JetBrains. Yeah, JetBrains. There's a version of software keys for JetBrains. Someone ported it. I think there's also for VS Code. Someone ported it. I'm not sure how good they are. So I guess I'm happy. So how do I feel about that? There's nothing I can say. On one hand, I'm happy. Someone, that means they appreciate my work, right? They like my work. But on the other hand, I'm here dying for lack of food, and other people just do things out of my work, take my work, and I get nothing for it. So that's the nature of open source. That is why there's many problems with open source. Okay, so for most open source, for a lot of people, they work in a company. They usually, they work for Microsoft, for Google, for Facebook, proprietary company, and they sing the songs of open source. So they make a lot of money. They have comfortable life. They have fancy cars. They have a house. They have money. Then at night they write code. They say, oh, you need open source. It's all free. For them, yeah, maybe open source is good. They think they are helping humanity. These fuckheads. They live a comfortable life. They work for proprietary company. They rob all other programmers who do not work for proprietary company. And I still know a lot of people, including I guess many of you guys. They are they are open source fanatics. I find that a major problem today. So for them, if you are you are comfortable, yeah, open source, but open source today means that any programmer, they either work for Google or Microsoft. They become a huge empire. They work, either you work for evil empire, or you have no way to survive, because everything you write, if it's not open source, nobody will use it, because all these fuckheads, these rich fuckheads, tell other people to not use it. That's what happens. Okay, and if you criticize open source, they will distance from you, like me, like my Emacs blog for 20 years. A lot of people hate it. Say, like on Reddit, every time. I'm not going to go into this another rant about that. But anyway, there's problems with open source. Okay, that's it for today. So I've been talking for 1 hour. That's it for today. 27 people. Okay, buy my stuff. Okay, one last, one last. Yeah, I've been talking for 1 hour, 1 hour and 10 minutes, and I should stop. So we okay. Buy my tutorials. Buy my stuff. Buy, and buy my JavaScript in depth. Okay, bye guys. I don't know about Scala. Okay, next time. Bye.